The memorial is a box of cream-colored concrete, 30 feet high and 50 feet square. It's held above a stone surface by slender pillars to give the entire thing a floating effect. On the north and south sides of the concrete box are narrow openings. In the center of the box is an 8-foot black granite slab with the words John Fitzgerald Kennedy on gold on two sides. New York architect Philip Johnson had a special description for the concrete structure. To him, its concept as a magnet, held apart by great tension and looking like it was about to clamp shut. He calls it symbolic of the tenseness and magnetism of Kennedy. A granite marker is to be placed later at the site. It carries these words of architect Johnson. This cenotaph, in honor of President Kennedy, I conceive as a place of quiet refuge, an enclosed place of thought and contemplation, separated from the city around, but near the sky and earth.
Well, I guess it's got to help. Witzel's had, really a great career. He's kind of a back who doesn't make the big mistake. When he came to New Orleans, the Bears thought he was finished, and he led the league in interceptions, and that was the year I was with New Orleans, and he did a great job. I think that what I've heard about the Dallas Cowboys, they're hurting in the defensive secondary, and Witzel's going to be a good addition. They need help back there, and Dave's the kind of guy, I think, he used to be a real fine cornerback, but now in his later years, you can move into that safety position. If you're quick enough, you don't have to be as good a football player, I don't think, as a defensive safety as you do on the corner.
Since you don't have to face these guys, at least maybe you could give us some sort of analysis on what do you think's wrong with the Cowboys?
Well, I think that they grew up awful fast, and they just weren't ready to make the big play at the big time. I know back during some of the Green Bay years, they had their problems with us, and it's a hard thing to explain. I don't know. Whenever we played the Cowboys, we felt as if they were going to make a mistake sometime during the ball game, and we had to take advantage of it. And we played, we almost had to play a waiting game offensively with them because defensively they were so strong. They were such a great football team. But it always seemed that sometime during the game that mistake was going to come, or that break. And I think that's happened to the Cowboys. They usually come to the big game. It's not that I don't go along with a lot that's been written. They can't win the big ones. Of course, how can you argue with it because they haven't? But it's not that the team is up or down or something happens. I think the way professional football is today, the amount of teams that are playing, that when you get to the playoffs today, a big play can mean so much, and it's kind of a ironic thing when you think that a team can go through a 14 or 12 game season and then end up the year with 2 playoff games, and all of a sudden that maybe one offsides, a 5-yard penalty, can mean so much. And that's what makes the game so popular. The Cowboys just have never seemed to get over the hump. I think it has become more frustrating to them every year because all the newspaper people and all the magazines usually pick the Cowboys to win it. I think from now on you're going to find a little bit different. They're going to be contenders, but they're not going to be picking the Cowboys to win it all in such an easy manner as they have been in the past.
The shock of that day is largely healed. The sensitive rawness of penance is past. So this happy day we come proudly to pay tribute to the life of that winsome man, not his death. Down the years, these trees will grow to noble proportions and shed their shade on and brightly and proudly honor the life of a bright, warm, proud, and forever young name that in this cherished plot of land shall never lose its luster. Thank you.
and young people, this is a great occasion. May I
can't let this kid.
The next person I'd like to introduce is
the cenotaph, in my memory, is the oldest form of commemoration, the most dignified, the simplest. To me, it fits the nihilism of our day to have a very simple, empty room to commemorate a man. A room where you can stand and see nothing but the sky and the ground, to force you to think about why you are there. And the simple inscription of the name is the only reminder you have of the man and of the memory.
Four primary reasons, Jess. First of all, we want to know if a principal or a superintendent has the right to set aside a state law for an indefinite period of time. Secondly, is suspending the teacher conference period really the best response to an emergency situation in a school? Thirdly, was the situation at North Dallas High School an emergency as defined in the school board's decision? And last of all, are teachers really the proper persons to deal with an emergency situation that may erupt in a school? Is a teacher to be used as a policeman?
Mr. Hodge, as a teacher at North Dallas High School, Do you feel that this is the case? What is the feeling of the 43 teachers in question towards Mr. Malone?
The question involved is not between Mr. Malone and the teachers. The teachers are appealing this strictly on the state law being violated. Now, as teachers, we spent a long time getting this law passed. And we feel that we are not only appealing for the North Dallas High School, but for every teacher in the school system.
The board expressed a spirit of cooperation, wanting to work with the city of Dallas. They did commend us for the work that we are doing in connection with cleaning up these various discharges, and have told us that they did want to follow a policy of uniform enforcement over the state so that the streams would be cleaned up uniformly.
They don't seem to feel then that Dallas is doing so much worse a job than anyone else.
I don't feel that they do, Phil. I think there was some misunderstanding, possibly, in the past. Naturally, the board would like to see things move faster sometimes than they do, and so would we. But we are doing a tremendous amount of research in the long-range plan that will be beneficial both to Dallas and to many other cities in the state and over the general area.
Do we have short-range plans that you think will satisfy the board?
I think so.
Mr. Nahl, Contact Aid has received a letter from a Mrs. Sheila Field in the 5400 block of Anita Street. It seems the apartments in that area have an illumination problem. Is there anything you can do?
When we received this contact, or this from Contact Aid, we immediately called Sheila, and she told us the concern of the lights in the neighborhood, told us who the property manager was. We contacted him. He in turn told us who the property owner was, for the owner had 35 duplex apartments in 3 streets, 2-block-long streets in this area. We knew when we contacted we had about 4 street lights in the area, that we did need more lights. We needed the request from the owner in the area. We in turn contacted the owner. He indicated that he would notify us by mail that he needed more lights in the area on the streets. We told him upon receipt of these lights we would install, or upon receipt of this letter we would install lights.
How long does it take a job like this to be completed?
Well, after receipt it takes about 6 to 8 weeks.
Well, do you have any advice for other people with similar problems?
Well, there are some dark areas in Dallas, and we would appreciate any resident who would call this office and ask for streetlight petitions, or get their neighbors to agree with them that they do need additional lighting in their neighborhood. If it's a commercial area, we'd like to hear by letter from the commercial establishment.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Nahl, for your time.
Thank you.
And I do want you to know that it's real easy to do that. I really almost pulled a dandy the other day over at President Johnson's ranch. I was helping to dedicate his boyhood home. And then I was going to present the title of this to the federal government. And in the remarks that were prepared, I was talking about the fact that here was where the President of the United States had grown up. Here's where he roamed the hills, and here's where you could see longhorn cattle. And they had in there, here also you could see deer and buffalo. You know, I almost said deer and buffalo.
Well, Art, I've had the opportunity in the last couple of years to see some of the games. I did some work over in Norfolk, Virginia, which I think is an affiliate in the Continental Football League, and it's good that, you know, when I came down here, I got to see my good friend Obert Logan, who's playing right here for the Fort Worth Braves. But I think there's a definite value. You know, there's so many professional football teams now, and I'm talking about the Continental Football League, and there's a 1,000,001 athletes who want to play football, and given the right opportunity, I think they're going to prove themselves. And I think over the period of years, and especially in the next 4 or 5, that, you know, you could see another league form.
The money that you're getting now to keep your existing system going is a very important part of our program. But as you formulate your plans and you get the community used to the idea of good public transportation, then the next step is naturally getting your local monies in order. And then when this bill goes through the Congress, and this bill, ladies and gentlemen, is for $10 billion over the next 12 years. And we're hopeful that for the whole country, we'll have $3.1 billion ready to obligate almost immediately as soon as the bill passes the Congress.
Council refuses to grant the $250,000. What will your group do then?
Well, we're going to continue to proceed. As you know, we have this Lawrence Halpern firm that's making a study for us and for the city. And they are now in the second phase, of which we hope to have completed by August or September. We feel this is a real long-range program, and possibly funds could be obtained from private foundations or individuals.
If it is approved and the when will the development of the area around the Trinity River begin?
Hopefully, in this August or September completion of Phase 2 by this firm, consulting firm, they're going to give us some priorities and some ideas and schematics of what they consider we should start to work on first in order of importance.
Will the project be carried on by Fort Worth firms, or are we having construction companies from people from out of the state or out of the city?
Well, remember one thing, a lot of this river land is privately owned, and we hope, and one way by putting water in the river continuously, that private firms, private individuals will even develop their land. Instead of ignoring the river, we hope that they will include the river in part of their architectural schemes or planning to make use of the river, and it's which we think is a tremendous asset to the city of Fort Worth, and yet up to now has not been exploited at all.
Do you foresee any difficulty in acquiring this land?
That's hard to say. I don't think the land we're talking about is not a great amount of land. The bulk of the land in this area is already in ownership of either the water board or the city itself. I think it's the water board.
And you feel sure that $250,000 is an adequate sum to purchase the needed land to complete the project?
Well, we're putting on a high priority, I think, this low-level dam, if we can get it approved by the Corps and other departments of the city. Yes, I think $250,000 would do it, and if not, because this is purely an estimate, as close as we could get, possibly other matching funds could be obtained from federal agencies or state.
Solutions to the problems of our smaller cities. Now, this program, let me remind you, represents the thinking of many individuals. It represents people of experience and knowledge concerning solutions to these problems of the small cities, as well as the causes of those problems and how they came about. And the program has a great deal of support, especially the concept. I noticed not long ago there was an editorial in the Dallas News, April the 27th, where Governor Conley had been over in Arizona making a talk on this very concept. And he advocated in his talk that necessary legislation might include tax credits up to 15% to industry willing to move plants from congested areas into communities of 500,000 or less. Of course, he was talking more on a nationwide basis. So certainly the concept we believe is right. We do have lots of support for the program. And from the suggestions of these people with the knowledge and experience that I spoke about, has emerged a simple system using the existing machinery to make Texas state government more sensitive to the needs of small towns and more readily available to them. Now, I saw some people here this morning who attended the very first meeting that we had whereby this idea was given birth down at a little place near Kerrville, Texas. Now, this program is a new approach. It's one that brings the full knowledge and resources of all of our state agencies to bear upon these solutions to small communities. Now, in your little package, you've got one of these. And after a while, if you'll look at it, you'll see listed on the back many of our state agencies. You'll see listed some of the federal agencies. You have talent and resources here that never has been tapped to work with you and with the leadership of all of our communities in Texas as they go about in an effort to solve the problems with which they're confronted. Now, the need for such a program was obvious. From my experience in state government, and I've been around for a good many years. I served 6 years in the House, 6 years in the Senate, 6 years in the Lieutenant Governor's office, and now we're in the Governor's office. But from all of this experience, I've recognized, and when I tell you this, every one of you here will know what I'm talking about. I've recognized that many groups from many communities throughout these 900 cities and towns in Texas, they come to Austin on almost an endless variety of missions. And you know, when they get there, they really don't know who to see. They really don't know where to go, so what happens? They go to the governor's office. And I say to you that that's logical and it's understanding, because where else would they go? Well, it was my strong conviction, and still is, that your state government did have many answers to give, and it did have many services to render, which were not being fully utilized. Now, the reason for this was not indifference or lack of time for consideration of solutions to the problems of our Texas cities. Rather, it was my feeling that it was simply a lack of communication. Briefly then, with this background,
they are referring primarily to the personnel procedures in hiring of personnel generally, and not of any specific individual.
Just what personnel procedures are they unhappy with?
I can't say that they're unhappy. Their ideas are somewhat different from the ideas of the staff.
The OEO operation here in Dallas?
Well, now, I think generally it is satisfactory. The actual programs, because there are many of them. And I think generally they're, the only criticism they had was a lack of program evaluation. And here again, this is being implemented. We're setting up a program evaluation system. And I anticipate no problems with this.